You mentioned in response to Mr. Nejam's questioning that you knew that there were other incidents involving Mr. Darjean and inappropriate handling of children is what I think you were talking about. Is that true?
Yes.
And he asked you, you know, what specifics you had, and I think you said you really didn't have specifics about
No, I don't have specifics. I just know of what I was told.
Okay, and who was it that told you about it?
It had to be one of the administrators and a couple other persons.
And do you know any of their names?
I can't think of the lady name that used to be the principal there. You may know what I'm talking about. She used to be. You can't.
But whoever it was had the position of principal?
Yes.
And did she tell you about, is there anybody other than her that you can think of offhand that told you about other incidents of Mr. Darjean inappropriately handling a child?
Yes.
Who else? Do you remember what it was she actually said that she was aware of?
Just handling situations wrongful.
Did she give you any specifics, or did she just make that general comment?
No, she gave me specifics, but I can't recall.
Okay. And is she the one, do you believe she's the one that would have told you that Mr. Darjean had actually been terminated on numerous occasions?
It was someone. I can't pinpoint that to her. I don't want to assume, but it was her or this other person. The
information that came from Miss Bird or that other person, Mr. Sanders, was that information that you were told at the time that you were still working at Focus Learning Academy?
I don't recall the timeline. I really don't.
During the time you were...
Most likely, yes.
Okay. And do you think it was information you were told even before your son's incident or after?
No, it was after.
Okay. From both of these people?
Yes.
All right. During the time you worked at Focus...
I'm sorry, is it hot in here or is it just me?
Yeah.
Who choked you? What teacher?
What's the teacher's name?
Okay, what's his name, baby? Give me a description of him.
John Darjean.
What you're about to hear is current news.
He didn't do it expeditiously either because he had to slip in and get it for us.
When you say slip in, did he have to go in some other room?
I don't know how he did it, but he did it.
All of the information contained in this video is in the public record. Shilo was a minor when this incident occurred. Shilo also tried to file a countersuit against John Darjean, claiming that he was choked and beaten. But the suit was later thrown out by the judge after a witness testifying under oath that John Darjean never hit Shilo Sanders.
During the time that you witnessed the altercation between John Darjean and Shilo Sanders, did you ever see John Darjean put his hands on Shilo's neck?
No, sir.
Did you ever see any of his hands anywhere near Shilo's neck?
No, sir.
Shilo attempted to file for bankruptcy on October 24th, 2023 in Dallas, Texas. The bankruptcy claim to avoid paying over $11 million that was owed to Mr. Darjean was denied, and the bankruptcy case was dismissed on October 30th, 2023. Deion Sanders stole most of the incriminating video that was available that showed Shilo Sanders playing dice and being the aggressor and assaulting security, which was Mr. John Darjean. Deion Sanders saved only one part of the surveillance video, and he sent that to TMZ a year later on June 16th, 2016. Deion Sanders even went to TMZ and claimed, "My son didn't beat up John Darjean," and that he had video proof.
Your recall is that regardless of which of them you asked, whoever it was said, "We don't have the video."
Right.
And then ultimately somebody else at the school kind of went and got the video for you and provided it.
Mm-hmm.
And would they have made a copy or did they just show it to you?
Trying to think of this guy's name. He got terminated from the school. He made a copy of it. He sent it to me by email. He was one of the JV freshman basketball coaches.
And how many days after that do you think it took for this a JV basketball coach to go ahead and email it to you?
It was a minute. It was quite some time. He didn't do it expeditiously either because he had to slip in and get it for us.
When you say slip in, did he have to go in some other room?
I don't know how he did it, but he did it.
Okay. According to their report, you did tell them that you saw the video from that 18th. I mean, from the 17th, where he's supposedly shooting dice in a room. Did you see that video?
No, I didn't.
So, is it your testimony that Mr. Ham documenting that you reported that that's what the security camera showed is wrong? You never told him that's what the security camera showed?
I don't remember seeing Shilo shooting dice. I don't recall that. If that happened, it happened, but I don't.
When you
recall it.
interviewed Mr. Deion Sanders, you were talking to him about the altercation that occurred between Shilo Sanders and Mr. John Darjean.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about what Mr. Sanders told you. Was anybody present with Mr. Sanders when you interviewed him?
Yes.
Who?
Mr. Rick Robertson, his legal counsel.
Okay. All right. So, is the date of the interview accurate?
I don't know.
Is the time of the interview accurate?
I don't recall the time.
Okay. And I want to go through this with you, okay? And you can read along with me. Have you noted in your report on page 11 what Mr. Deion Sanders told you?
Yes.
Okay. If you'll read along, it states, Mr. Sanders reported that on Thursday, September 17th, 2015, the security cameras at the Focus Learning Academy observed Shilo and another student shooting dice on the school premises. Is that one of the things that Deion Sanders told you?
Yes.
With me. Mr. Sanders reported that on Thursday, September 17th, 2015, the security cameras at the Focus Learning Academy observed Shilo and another student shooting dice on the school premises. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And did you tell Jordan Ham that during your interview?
I don't recall.
Okay. But you could have.
I don't recall.
Do you dispute telling him that?
I don't recall.
Okay. So you're not saying you didn't tell him, and you're not saying you didn't tell, that you did tell him. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm saying I don't recall.
And then Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo was confronted by security personnel, Mr. John Darjean. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And is that what Deion Sanders told you?
Yes.
Then it states, Mr. Sanders indicated that Mr. Darjean did find dice in Shilo's bag. Then it states, Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo was confronted by security personnel, Mr. John Darjean. Mr. Sanders indicated that Mr. Darjean did find dice in Shilo's bag. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And is that accurate? Did you tell Mr. Ham that?
I don't recall that.
Are you saying you did not tell him that?
I'm saying I don't recall that, period.
Okay. All right. Is that another thing Mr. Sanders told you?
Yes.
Because he's the one that admitted him to the Dallas County Juvenile Detention Center, isn't he?
Yes.
Then it states, Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo was sent to in-school supervision, ISS. Mr. Sanders reported that Shilo became disruptive while in ISS. He indicated that Shilo attempted to use his cell phone while in ISS, which is a violation of school policy. Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And did you tell Jordan Ham that?
I don't recall this.
Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And is that another thing Deion Sanders told you in the interview?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Did you tell Mr. Ham that?
I don't recall that.
Okay. But by the time that you gave this face-to-face meeting with Jordan Ham, you had already spoken to Shilo Sanders about the altercation, hadn't you?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that? Are you saying you had not already talked to him?
No, what I'm saying, I don't recall if I talked to Shilo or not.
But if Mr. Ham interviewed you on the 29th and the altercation occurred on the 17th, you would have talked to Mr. Ham almost 2 weeks after the altercation, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you know where you would have gotten the information where you say that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean?
The key word there is reportedly. The key word there is reportedly. That someone had to tell it. I believe Mr. Ham was asking to give him a description of what I thought happened and what was said to have happened. And I'm giving him an analysis on what I was told.
Okay, and who told you that?
Someone at the school, I don't recall.
Was
who
it
told me.
Leroy McClure?
Definitely wasn't Leroy.
Was it Coach Shires?
Who?
Is it Coach Shires? Was it Coach Shields?
Coach Shields. Definitely wasn't Shields. Shields ain't really down with that character, so it wasn't Shields. I don't know who it would have been.
What's Coach Shields' first name?
I don't know.
You know he witnessed this event, don't you?
You're right.
Well, did you read Coach Shields' statement?
No, I didn't.
Are you aware that Coach Shields said in his statement, wrote down in his statement on the day this altercation occurred, that Shilo Sanders elbowed John Darjean in the chest?
Objection. The same facts not known. Overruled.
No.
Not a proper objection at the deposition.
Are you aware of that, sir?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So can you tell me, sir, where you got the information that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean?
I don't know. Someone in the school. I don't know who told
Could
me.
it have come from your son?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
He wouldn't have said that.
And now, is it your understanding that Mr. Sanders, Deion Sanders, was not a witness to this altercation?
Yes.
Okay. So you understood if Deion Sanders was not a witness to this altercation, he would have had to have gotten this information from somebody who did witness it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You don't know where he got the information?
Correct.
Okay. It could have been from Shilo Sanders.
It could have been.
Okay. Now, I want to go back through that last sentence. Mr. Deion Sanders told you that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Deion Sanders gave you that information, right?
Yes.
Then Deion Sanders told you that Shilo began resisting away from Mr. Darjean. Is that right?
Yes.
Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Then Mr. Sanders stated that Mr. Darjean was required to restrain Shilo. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And that's something that Deion Sanders told you.
Yes.
And then it states Mr. Sanders stated that Mr. Darjean was required to restrain Shilo. Did you tell Jordan Ham that?
I don't recall.
You're not saying you didn't, did you?
No,
Are
I'm saying
you?
I don't recall that.
Okay, all right. So Deion Sanders, among other things, told you in his interview that because Shilo Sanders struck John Darjean and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean, John Darjean was required to restrain Shilo Sanders.
Objection 4.
Yes.
He brought that home to you in your interview.
Objection 4.
Can you ask that a different way?
He told you that in your interview with Deion Sanders.
Yes.
Okay. Then it states, Mr. Sanders stated that school personnel are all trained on how to perform proper restraints. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And did Mr. Sanders tell you that?
Yes.
Then it states Mr. Sanders stated that school personnel are all trained on how to perform proper restraints. Do you recall telling Mr. Ham that?
I definitely tell Mr. Ham the school personnel are all trained. I don't talk like that.
Okay, so you know you didn't tell him that.
No, because some ways you speak and some ways you don't. I know I don't speak in that manner.
Do you know why Jordan Ham, an official of the state of Texas, would make that up then?
You gotta ask him that.
Okay, I did, and he said he didn't make it up.
I don't talk like that.
Okay.
I know my verbiage. I don't talk like that.
All right.
I don't lie. I don't lie for nobody. Never did. I don't lie. I don't lie for nobody. Never did.
Do you know why Jordan Ham, an official of the state of Texas, would make that up then?
You gotta ask him that.
Okay, I did, and he said he didn't make it up.
I I don't talk like that.
Okay.
I know my verbiage. I don't talk like that.
All right. Then it states Mr. Sanders stated that he does not suspect any excessive physical force used in restraining Shilo.
I don't talk like that.
Well, sir, it says you said that. Did you say that to him?
No, sir.
I don't lie. I don't lie for nobody. Never did.
Okay. And this information, Mr. Ham, was important to you because one of the things you were trying to determine is whether or not excessive force was used by John Darjean on Deion Sanders, right?
On Shilo Sanders.
On
correct.
Shilo Sanders, right?
Correct.
And one of the things you were also trying to determine is whether or not John Darjean abused Shilo Sanders, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that Deion Sanders at least told you back on September 29th, 2015 was that Mr. Sanders stated that Shilo reportedly struck Mr. Darjean in the chest and began resisting away from Mr. Darjean, and also stated that Mr. Darjean was required to restrain Shilo Sanders. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And of course, Mr. Sanders stated to you that we went through earlier that school personnel are all trained on how to perform proper restraints, right?
Yes.
Did Mr. Deion Sanders in his conversation with you ever tell you that he thought John Darjean used excessive force on Shilo Sanders?
No, he did not.
Did you give him an opportunity to?
Yes.
Did Mr. Deion Sanders ever tell you in your interview with him that he thought John Darjean physically abused his son, Shilo Sanders?
No, he did not.
Did you give him an opportunity to do that?
Yes.
I noticed that in your pleadings in this case, you allege that Mr. Darjean did use excessive force. The question I have for you is, why are you alleging that now when Mr. Ham says you told him you did not suspect any excessive physical force that Mr. Darjean did when he was restraining Shilo?
He did use physical force. I saw it on a video.
So you think the video shows that?
Yes.
Okay. What part of the video do you believe shows that?
The video that I saw, that I have.
Okay. Do you think that's the same one that's been produced to me?
I don't think it's but one.
What does that video show you? What did it show you?
It showed that your client was out of order, out of character as normal, that this is a repetitive feat, and it showed me that also the actions showed me that this is not his first time. This is a multiple time, but this is his first time going to court with it, because one particular person in this room that he knows is of the African American descent has done pretty good for himself personally.
Okay. Well, I didn't follow the whole thing, but I want to unpack it. Okay. Are you saying that John Darjean has used excessive force in another incident?
Yes.
And can you give me any details about that
I can't.
other than your conclusory statements?
Well, yeah, right. Whatever that means, yeah.
Okay. Who was the individual that you think?
I don't know the individual's names.
Okay. Okay. Can you give me any other details about it?
No, I can't.
Can you give me the date that it occurred?
No, I can't.
Can you tell me where it occurred?
No,
Can you tell me
school
All right.
at AAA Academy.
Gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Let me remind you that you need to slow down and let each other finish your questions and answers.
Then it states, Mr. Sanders stated that he does not suspect any excessive physical force used in restraining Shilo. Did I read that right?
Yes.
And is that what Deion Sanders himself told you?
Yes.
Did Deion Sanders ever tell you he thought his son Shilo Sanders was in any way mistreated by Mr. John Darjean?
No.
Did you give him an opportunity to tell you?
Yes.
And Deion Sanders, at that very time, when you were interviewing him, he had legal counsel there, didn't he?
Yes.
He had a lawyer there by the name of Rick Robertson the entire time, didn't he?
Yes.
Then it states, Mr. Sanders stated that he feels as if the situation was handled appropriately by Mr. Darjean, right?
Yes.
And Deion Sanders himself told you that.
Yes.
Did Deion Sanders ever tell you anything to the effect that he believed John Darjean did not handle the altercation between Mr. Darjean and Shilo Sanders wrong or improper?
No, he did not.
Did you give him an opportunity to tell you that?
Yes.
Okay. You also mentioned race.
Yes.
You mentioned African American descent.
Right.
Do you think in any way the altercation between my client and your son was race oriented?
No, you missed it because you're white. You missed it. No, you missed it because you're white. You missed it.
I want to get back to the report. Are you saying, Mr. Sanders, that you did not tell Jordan Ham that you didn't suspect any excessive force used in restraining your son?
No, sir, I did not tell him that.
I don't lie. I don't lie for nobody. Never did. Serious people. I'm serious about my time. I'm serious about life. Let's stop playing these games and let's get to it, my man.
Yeah, objection non-responsive. I'm not playing any games with you, sir. Who were you last married to?
I'm going. We're going. That's the other court.
I'm going to warn you about leaving this deposition after you've been placed under oath. You're not allowed to do that. Okay? We'll take it up with the judge.